Hello, my name is Christian Castellani and I am a game designer here at BattleGoat Studios.
My name is Dylan Bassett. I'm a game designer here at BattleGoat Studios.
My name is Christian Latour. I am a project manager with BattleGoat Studios and have worked on a number of titles with the studio over the years.
So when did you start gaming?
I started gaming probably, I must have been about, trying to remember, 8 or 9 years old at this point. My father had gotten a 386 and had given me a section of about 10 megs on his hard drive that I was allowed to install a couple games on there.
So when I first cut my teeth on gaming, it was with NetHack actually. And by the time I was able to beat that game, I felt like I could beat anything. And so a few decades later of Smash Bros. Melee, and I'm pretty confident at this point.
The first game I ever got into is Super Mario Bros. 2 on the Super Nintendo. It's a great game. It was actually a Christmas present for my parents. It was a combined gift for me and my brother, so we took turns playing it, and I mostly got to watch, but also play occasionally. It's the perks of being the younger brother.
One of the earliest games I remember playing was essentially a first-person shooter. It was called The Three Demon. It was Pac-Man, but in a first-person view, that you had to run through the maze, still finding the pellets, eating the ghosts, complete a level, drop down to the next, all done in a first-person view. And that was definitely something that stuck with me over the years in the very early design levels.
Yeah, I got into more and more games. We ended up getting a N64, PlayStation 1. We got into Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, one of my all-time favorites. A great game. So I still actually go back and play that like every year or so. Go back and beat it again.
So when you're not getting destroyed by everyone in a playtest, what kind of games do you normally play?
Lately I've been doing a lot of looking back through my Steam collection, going to a number of the games I haven't played much. I fired up Borderlands, XCOM and XCOM 2. I've also been doing some of the older titles off of GOG that I went back and looked at the very early Dungeons & Dragons, Forgotten Realms, RPGs. Even fired up a game that I'd played about 20 years back called Imperium Galactica that I remembered enjoying. So a lot of digging all over the place, just trying to revisit some of the things that inspired me in the past.
Right now I'm big into Stellaris. It's a great game. It's a real-time strategy game. I love it. Other than that, I play Rust, and Crusader Kings 2 is probably my all-time favorite.
I spend almost all of my free time looking for puzzle games. I'm always on the hunt for the next big challenge. Obscure games are great, but the harder the better. I think there's an obscure game called Systems Twilight that is only available on the Mac. It's one of my favorites.
What initially drew you to video games?
I had already been working in the technology industry doing computer retail for a while, so obviously I had the opportunity to counsel people on what I thought were good games, bad games, selling them and stuff. And the opportunity came up for me to join BattleGoat Studios from knowing some of the people who worked at the company. So really it was a jump of opportunity that I left a fairly standard Monday to Friday job to go work in somebody's basement, because that's what the studio consisted of all the way back in 2001.
Oh, it's been fun. It's a great corporate culture. I've been sort of digging into this data management tool, and it's been an interesting challenge. It takes in pretty much every kind of file used internally here and replaces all of the old tooling for manipulating that data and makes it ready for the engine to actually use the information.
So what's the purpose of developing a tool like this? Like what significance does this have for BattleGoat and also for the community?
Well, it should be a lot easier for us to work with our internal documentation and data, working with this tool as it sort of streamlines the process of analyzing what the heck's going on in the system and changing values, looking up values. Anything you do with the data is now going to be a little cleaner and faster and hopefully less error prone. Hopefully soon it will be open for modders to access, and I'm kind of excited about that. And then they will be able to manipulate the files a lot more easily than Notepad.
I actually got the job here at BattleGoat through a co-op opportunity at Mohawk College. I put on my resume my thousands of hours spent playing real-time strategy games, and I guess that piqued George and Chris's interest. Yeah, the resume that I applied to BattleGoat with was one I specifically made just for this position. Of course, there were some software positions that I did not want to announce my thousands of hours spent gaming, but for this job I felt it was probably a good decision to let them know that I enjoy games.
Well, obviously I start looking at other video games that are out there as a basis point, that within a genre and style that we've chosen, I'd start looking at those. But for me, it's always been important to get influences outside of that, to look at physical board games, card games, to see other sorts of entertainment sources that people are using. Board games, for me in particular, has been a passion of mine, that a lot of times they will have very straightforward, simple mechanics that can be translated back into the digital realm. It's just a matter of breaking it down, finding the pieces that work, and bringing it forward. That for a board game, it's always important for them to be able to make things simple enough to keep the player engaged and move the stories forward within what the players are playing. Two games in particular that I've looked at lately in terms of, from a design standpoint, would be Stellaris and City Skyline. That both of these, I've been doing a lot of thinking around UI design and how much screen real estate should be used up, and how should players access deeper levels of complexity without making the game unapproachable to average users. I find that those are games that have been trying to innovate in the stuff they do. City Skyline in particular, I find has a UI that on the surface, to look at it, you'd sort of, your first instinct might be to say, it looks kind of like a mess, that these buttons are in non-equidistant positions, different sizes, and there isn't a clear pattern in the way they've laid out the UI. But as you sit down and start playing it, the player can quickly develop what we call muscle memory, where you have a sense. When you want to move your mouse to a specific button, your mind very quickly knows exactly how much motion on the mouse is going to get you to the right spot, and that it's built in a way that is very accessible to get to what can at times be a very deep game. So that, again, because BattleGoat Studios is always focused on strategy games, we're always looking for ways to adjust how we present our information to the players, because it's really easy for us to overload players if we give them access to every bit of the data.
In the video game industry, the most important skill as a project manager?
Being a project manager at a game studio and on a specific game project involves a lot of organization, of being able to understand the tasks that have been given to other people who are able to do things that you probably don't even know how to do. You understand what they're doing, but their skill is beyond yours. You still need to be able to convey to them a good, clear definition of what they need to achieve, and to make sure that each part of the team is staying in sync with the other parts. So a lot of communication, documentation, making sure that they're staying on scope, that timelines are being met. It's a lot around organization. Probably the biggest thing I find challenging being a project manager here is that as a small studio, everybody wears a lot of hats. And what that ends up meaning for myself is that while I'm a project manager, I'm still also doing a lot of development work, that I'm doing data entry, UI design, asset management. And so you do get a lot of push-pull, that there's days where I'd like to sit down and spend the whole day updating design documents, but there's some UI pieces that right now nobody else is available to assemble them, and they're going to be needed for something else. So it's the balance between my primary title and the secondary tasks that you end up picking up in a small studio.
Coming out of school and working in the video game industry, probably the biggest shock to me is how much work goes into actually just documenting and designing the game, and not exactly working on the actual code aspects or the graphic assets or that kind of thing. Like, there's a lot of work that goes into planning, organizing, documenting, and making sure everyone on the team's on the same page, making sure people are working on their proper tasks, and task delegation, project management. Done a lot of work just about working on all the different game files. They have a lot of documentation, a lot of modifying, some UI work mostly. Use their proprietary tools. They have a builder app for their UI work. I use that a lot and often. It's a very interesting tool, a lot of cool functionality. I'm most excited to get working on some of our game files on our upcoming title. So far it's unannounced, but I'm really just looking forward to digging in deep on some of those game files and working on balancing things and creating new assets and integrating those in our game.
I'm excited to get some of my stuff into the public sphere. I've been sort of burning with enthusiasm to get into this industry for quite some time now. It's hard to express how much it means to me that I'm finally got my foot in the door, and by God, I'm not going to waste my chance.
All right, is there anything you'd like to say to the community?
To check us out on social media, that we have a Discord channel that has a certain number of people in there all the time. Also our forums, the BG forums, that myself and a number of the team are fairly active on the forum, reading all the posts, answering to quite a number of them. And that's a lot of times where we go for community discussions, that as the community brings forward an idea of something like us to add to one of our titles, we count on having solid discussions on our forums back up that there's a real community desire, not just a single person asking for a feature. So checking out our forums, that's definitely where I'd point people first.
Just want to let everyone know that I am very active on our Discord server as well as the bgforums.com. If anyone would like to get into a multiplayer game, it's a great way for me to learn our game and get some feedback from you guys. So if you like, just make a post either on bgforums.com or on our official Discord server. I'll be sure to get back to you and we can play together.
No comment.
See you later.